Hi, it's Frank at the cricket. Just to let you know, I've dialed in, so I'm ready for a two with Malcolm whenever he wants. Yeah, perfect. Okay, cheers, bye.
Not so bad, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I'm good. How was your curry?
Oh, it's excellent. Really
And a
was.
garlic?
No, I didn't actually. Because I'm staying where I am and not having a car because I came by train.
You're a bit further down,
I
yeah.
got the nearest. Well, no, I asked the landlady, who she calls herself, I said, you know, there are half a dozen to choose from, which is the best? And she said, well, the one we go to is actually the nearest. So
Right.
I think it was called the Cot.
Yeah, I know where it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it was
yeah.
excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
good. Excellent. Good. Well, I've had a telling off from the chairman this morning
Oh, really?
for inaccuracies. I want to talk to you about your knowledge of our club. I went, what?
Oh, no.
He said, we own the ground. You said it was owned by the Dean chapter. I said, actually, I think you'll find
You
that
didn't say that.
I think you'll find that I said it used to be owned by the Dean chapter. I'm not sure if it still is now.
I'm positive you did, yes.
And he said, well, we own our ground. He said, and the other thing is, he said, last summer it wasn't women's cricket we had here, it was the Pakistan. I went, oh, okay, yeah, so it was, yeah, okay. He said, and there was something else too. I went, oh, right, okay. Look at him, I know more about Worcestershire Cricket Club than he's ever known.
Well, I'm sure you do.
Just ridiculous.
Is he normally like that, Dick?
Players hate him. I was just telling Vicky about our chairman.
I've been registered for it. She decided to stop me working in the winter months because I've only been doing it for 4 years. Work for the press association.
Is he fairly new to it?
He knows nothing. He's a retired hedge fund manager with millions of pounds who has decided he wants to take over
This
this.
toy. Do you know what happens to give him? And I'll tell you this, obviously it's a bit complex. Do you know what happens to give him? Called him Adolf.
Well, I've been talking to the match referee Stuart about we did our we were walking off. That was in front of Stuart, and he said it in front of Stuart. And I walked off, and I said, and Stuart went, "Who's that?" And I went, "Chairman." And he went, "Oh my God!" And I said, "Not very popular with the players." He said, "That's what I've already heard."
See, the players hate him.
Hate him.
They do. They hate him. The players told me this. The ones I speak to, they'll admit to the old guys that you say you speak to. The other day, said to me, "Oh, there's that Adolf's on the phone," and if you're saying that in front of the players,
But I just told Vicky, and Vicky said you didn't say that the Dean
I remember listening.
Replay it.
I made a big point of it.
as the Supporters Association vice chairman, we bought that for the bloody club, not
1976.
not fans.
How long has he been chairman? So this is his first actual season.
It was a bit of a coup, really. He just sort of
But he was
came
on the
in.
committee before, presumably, wasn't he?
He was on the committee, but it's micromanagement. He shouldn't be management, and he wants to go to management for everything. All he knows is an absolute twat, and I don't say that about many people.
No, I'm sure he
But
does.
the fact that we don't think you write very well. The words you use in your intros are not going to attract younger members. I saw Paul Pridgen, though, who's the cricket chairman, and I said to him, what was he and all these different things. It won't make any difference, but it's not the fact that I was going to probably take the chance to put that principle on it.
It's so annoying.
Now you had a text.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And there was something else, he said. I want to talk to you about your knowledge of our club. I nearly said, what? What?
You want to talk bridges. I'm serious.
I will.
Make sure you tell me.
I will.
Because he's building up this information. Bridges, you reckon can walk and go, yeah?
Well, if he comes today and I get a chance, I will.
And will he have been elected by the members or by the rest of the 30?
The board.
Yeah, but he probably leaned on.
Lucky they got a magnificent bloke.
Well, these some people get involved in cricket.
No, exactly. I mean, players shouldn't. Players don't really need to have an opinion on it, because he should be like.
Hi. Yeah. Ready when you are. Okay.
Walking away, but that's generally 65 wicket and take my 5 defences and I just come down here and do the easy beats of it. I don't need that once I get to retirement age next year, the money I get from my private collecting will more than cover peanuts that I pay down here. Well, I'm running away to see me because I've been telling him this awful lot. Now he's having full chat. Anyway, what I told you about adult is not for them on the air.
What's this real name?
Where are you staying? At the Bankhead?
I'm staying at a place.
Oh, this side, yeah.
Frank knows it very well because I don't know the names of roads, but if you carry on going up the high street.
Yeah, walk up, yeah.
Past the Aldgate station.
Yeah, I'll go that way, yeah.
Then you've got the grammar school.
Yeah, but yeah.
Just about a mile, no, not a mile, a few hundred yards beyond there. I think it's called Barbour.
Yeah, Barbour's, I used to live there.
And
Yeah.
then about half a dozen bed and breakfast.
Oh, nice. All right. Oh, great, yeah. Did you walk there? Did you walk? Yeah. No, I used to live down there.
It's only about 20 minutes.
Well, where I'm living now, I can see the Essex coast from my window. I'm next, right next to where I've got the golf course. Right there in the hotel next to it. So I was going to say to Paul, actually, if I could meet him for a drink. He's staying there as well, you see. Paul is one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get making for a beer. He is here. Yeah, still, I don't know where he's gone. He's gone upstairs or something, or gone uptown.
You mentioned in passing the car. Well, that came by train just now.
If I appear rude, I'm on a sponsorship.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's the other way. That's it, man. Yeah, great, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Morning, Malcolm. Yes, hopefully they won't get 700, but they are nicely placed on 266 for 2, the visitors, after winning the toss yesterday. We saw a typical Alistair Cook century yesterday, batted for most of the day. 263 balls, 17 fours, he made 115, and it was sort of indicative of how much he still cares about the game, that he was very upset when he got out towards the end of the day. The other man out yesterday was Brown for 26. Worcestershire had a long hard day on a pretty unresponsive pitch, and it looks like it could be more of the same today, I'm afraid.
You're not here on Saturday?
No, I'm going home for a morning.
Oh, right. Well, I'm the football tomorrow. We're losing Cardiff tomorrow. We're in the City Club tomorrow. Yeah. I always do football for the sun, you see, because I can still follow this on the live stream these days. You can listen to, well, it won't be your country, though, I mean, yours, around the place.
It'd be interesting to see how this game goes, really. It looks like a bit of a draw already.
Well, unless it deteriorates in a way it never last week. It feels a bit like exactly the same as last week because we've had back-to-back games. All the floods and the worries and it's still live, but they thought there was a bit more interest in the win last week. If your boys are contending at that all now.
1 2 1 2. Testing, audio test. How's that, Kerry? Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Oh, check the other camera.
The other mic.
Hang on, he's just doing it now. Just doing it now.
1 2 1 2. Testing, audio test. Microphone 2, ABC.
Perfect, have a good day. Yeah. Thanks, Kaz.
Was all right what I said, was it?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Didn't say anything factually inaccurate. No, I try not to. Try and pull it out when I want to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Fred Barnard from Worcester. Yeah. Hi, it's Frank at the cricket. Can you cut the queue into my cams, please, until just before you need me, because I've got to go on the website now. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Cheers. Bye. Thank you. Okay. Good morning from New Road, Worcester. Day 2 of the LV County Championship game between Worcestershire and Essex about to get underway after yesterday saw Essex pile up 266 for 2 in 96 overs. The cornerstone of that innings, a fine 100 from Sir Alistair Cook. 115 he made before he was dismissed by Alzari Joseph, the only successful bowler yesterday for Worcestershire. He also picked up the wicket of Nick Brown earlier in the day for 26. They were the two men out. The two batsmen at the crease at the moment are Tom Westley, who's on 75, and Dan Lawrence, who's on 33. Lawrence probably made run scoring look easier yesterday than any other player on this benign surface. The attack this morning is going to be taken up from the Diglis end by Ed Barnard, and he will be bowling to Lawrence. One slip, the only close catcher, and although we have got Darryl Mitchell in at short extra cover in case Westley mistimes a drive on this surface. The odd ball did appear to sort of stick in the surface a little bit yesterday. Barnard in then, first ball of day 2, bowls and beats Lawrence's forward push outside the off stump, and the ball goes through to the wicketkeeper Ben Cox. I did say that yesterday Lawrence made batting look a little bit easier than anybody else. He came in at the fall of Cook's wicket with a score on 210 for 2, and he's currently scored his runs so far, his 33, off just 40 balls, which in the context of this game is pretty quick scoring, and he played quite fluently. It's something that Sir Alistair Cook mentioned in his post-match interview last night, was that Dan Lawrence went in and made a bit of a mockery of the way that the batsman had played earlier in the day with his fluency. Westley, by contrast, 75 not out, the non-striker, has faced 181 deliveries. Here's Barnard in again, bowls, and Lawrence is studiously forward and plays this one very correctly back to the bowler. Cloudy morning here at Worcester again, but quite bright, and chilly again, as I'm sure it is at grounds up and down the country. The possibility of a shower or two later in the day, but by no means certain. Barnard is in again, bowls outside the off stump to Lawrence, who leaves this alone. Through it goes to Ben Cox, who takes it low down by his ankles, and no runs added yet so far in the day. Worcestershire a little bit profligate in the field yesterday, in the sense that they put down 3 or 4 difficult chances. None of them straightforward, and always catching is very difficult on a cold day. As in comes Barnard again, this one a little bit wider outside the off stump and left alone by Lawrence, taken by Cox. Nonetheless, I know they were disappointed in the dressing room last night to have not taken at least 1 or 2 of those opportunities that arose during the day. It could have changed things, but nonetheless a tough day yesterday, having lost the toss and struggled to make inroads on this fairly benign looking pitch so far, as Barnard again is in and outside the off stump with this one to Lawrence, who leaves it alone, and it scoots through quite low, sort of knee height, and dies on its way through to the wicketkeeper Ben Cox. So 1 ball left in this first over of day 2. Ed Barnard will be hoping he can complete the job and get another maiden in the column. Comes in now, bowls, and he doesn't manage to keep it to a maiden, because Lawrence gets a single, albeit off a slightly thickish outside edge down to first run added to the total. 267 for 2 after 1 over this morning. Ed Barnard, 20 overs, 9 maidens, no wicket for 40. His fairly tidy figures. Just do an update for FM listeners to BBC Hereford and Worcester. Well, we've had one over on day 2 here at a bright, if cloudy, New Road. It was bowled by Ed Barnard. Just one run came from it, with Dan Lawrence adding to his overnight score. He's moved on to 33. Tom Westley is on 76. It was a hard day for Worcestershire yesterday, though. We're hoping they can make early inroads into the Essex middle order. But at the moment, with one over gone on day 2, the visitors are 267 for 2. And it's going to be Alzari Joseph taking up the attack from the New Road end. He comes in now to bowl to Lawrence, I beg your pardon. And this one is tucked away by Lawrence to deep backward square leg, picks up a couple of runs. Fullish ball on leg stump, and fielded on the leg side boundary. 269 for 2 then, so Lawrence continuing his fluent form. Actually, I beg your pardon, Westley. Got my batsman the wrong way around. Westley has picked up the runs. He's on 78 now. Beg your pardon. Characteristic as well, that little tuck off the pads. We saw it so many times yesterday from Tom Westley, and indeed 2 or 3 weeks ago down at Chelmsford when he made that big double 100. This one he leaves alone outside the off stump, taken by Cox, and it's 269 for 2. I've got to get the cue from BBC Haven Worcester's FM station cut shortly, but in the meantime, a good morning to Dickie Davis from BBC Radio Essex. Nice to see you again, Dickie.
Thanks. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, listeners. Oh, and viewers, we have to say as well, listeners and viewers. Yes, another pretty miserable day weather-wise. Wouldn't think it's the last day of April.
Here comes Joseph again. He bowls outside the on-off stump really to Westley, who pushes up to mid-on, and there's no run this time. So yeah, I had my 2 batsmen the wrong way around this morning.
Oh right.
Dan Lawrence hasn't added to his overnight score. Tom Westley it was who faced the first over, took a single off the last ball, and then 2 off the first ball of this second over. 269 for 2. A day in the dirt, it was described as yesterday by Alan Richardson, the Worcestershire bowling coach. Sort of common parlance amongst cricketers for a day spent toiling in the field. And they were hoping it won't be all day today, as Joseph comes in and bowls to Westley again, who tucks this one away again off his legs down to long leg, fielded there by Tom Fell. They come back for 2. Another typical Westley shot, and he's looked in good touch. You mentioned, Dickie, that he was struggling for runs a little bit, having got that double 100 in the first innings of the season, but he looks as though he enjoys the Worcestershire attack.
Yes, it does really, and I understand that, having spoken to them over the years, that it really does give them confidence against the same people. When they were travelling up here to Worcester, Westley will be thinking, well, yeah, I got a big score against them earlier in the season.
Here's Alzari Joseph again. He's in, he bowls, and more runs for Westley here. Probably going to get 2 more. This one worked away through mid-wicket, but he's going to get 3 actually, as Gareth Roderick runs round from deep mid-wicket and flicks the ball up to Dilling Pennington, who's chased it down from mid-on. So 3 more to Westley. He moves to 83, and it's 274 for 2. Incidentally, on that point about scoring runs against the same team and at New Road and so on, we were factually incorrect yesterday about Alistair Cook, because that was his 4th century.
Well, I saw that on,
and he averages over 100, I think, on this ground. Somebody said so.
Now, yeah, I saw that on some social media, and I meant to check it out again because.
Yeah, it's true. I did check. Here's Joseph again. He bowls, and Lawrence is forward to this one and pushes out on the offside.
Well, I think to put the record straight, it wasn't that we were wrong, it was that I was wrong. I mean, I came out with it. It's very generous and magnanimous of you to say we were wrong. No, you didn't have a hand or a voice in it. I said it and I was wrong. But it.
Well, apparently, yeah, he's made hundreds here before. 3 times against Worcestershire and once, I think, or twice against Worcestershire and once for the England Lions, I think. So it's a very good ground for us to cook.
Presumably with players the opposite applies as well, although they'll try and put negative thoughts out of their mind, I know, and well, you would know better than I as a coach, but yeah, but if they never score runs against a certain side, it must gnaw away at the back of their minds.
Yeah. Westley on strike again as Barnard comes in from the Diglis end and bowls, and Westley is back to this one and pushing into the covers. Darryl Mitchell does the fielding, and there is no addition to the score. So yes, yeah, I think so. I think you have favourite teams, favourite grounds, favourite bowlers. I think probably anybody that plays on a regular circuit in league cricket or in county cricket or state cricket or whatever it might be, will have those scenarios. As Barnard is in again, bowls outside the off stump. Westley on the front foot and lifts the bat well clear of that and allows it through to Ben Cox.
You said, you know, hopefully Worcestershire won't be. You didn't say chasing leather or in the field all day again today. Well, I'm sure they won't be, because if Essex, you know, still are in a commanding position at say tea time, you'd have thought they'd call it a day and try and get some wickets in the last session. So I'm sure they won't be in the field all day. Yeah. Unless it rains, of course.
Yeah. Here's Barnard in again, bowls outside the off stump, and this one is allowed through by Westley. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the things about keeping a team out there in the field in the cold for a day or two is that when you do eventually get them in, they're going to be a little bit hungover by the experience, and you might pick up early wickets.
Yes,
despite the fact that the pitch has looked fairly benign. We did see the last ball of the day yesterday, incidentally, climb steeply.
Yeah, he did, didn't it? Yes.
Barnard in, bowls again outside the off stump to Westley. Climbed steeply from Dylan Pennington, took the edge of Dan Lawrence's bat, I think it was, flew through the gloves of Ben Cox, or past the fingertips of Ben Cox and down to the third man boundary. So the odd ball has given encouragement, but it has been the odd ball, nothing too regular. Barnard in once. For Tom Westley, who's moved on to 87, and it's 278 for 2. And
we would of course welcome emails. We had a flurry of them yesterday at the Essex email address, which is, I must get this right because it's changed this year, bbcessexcricket@gmail.com. BBC Essex Cricket, all one string of 15 characters, no dots or anything, at gmail.com. And yours, Frank, for those who don't know it?
I'm on Twitter at FrankWatson58, all lowercase. Love to hear from you. Always like to pick up one or two more followers from different counties. As Alzari Joseph comes in and bowls wide outside the off stump to Lawrence, who throws the bat at that and misses it by some considerable distance, taken by Ben Cox. That one shaped away, started a little bit wide of off stump, swung away a little bit further, and Lawrence decided it was wide enough to really let his arms go, and it would have taken some catching if he'd nicked it. He missed it anyway. 278 for 2, and Alzari Joseph turning again at the end of his run at the New Road end, moving away from us now. In and bowls, and this one is a little bit wider still and left alone by Dan Lawrence. Just a couple of things that were pointed out to me about yesterday, things that we said that may have been slightly inaccurate. I did, when I was talking about Diglis end and the origin of that term, d'église, the land of the church and so on. I said that this ground had been owned by the Dean and Chapter of the Cathedral, and I said I wasn't sure whether that was still the case. It's not the case. Worcestershire now do own the ground, I'm informed. In fact, I think I kind of said I wasn't sure, as Joseph Bowles again outside the off stump, but they bought the ground from the Dean and Chapter of the Cathedral back in 1976, so they are now the owners of the ground. And the other thing that was pointed out to me was that I said last summer, when you asked me about whether the ground had been used and the hotel had been used in a sort of bubble type situation, I said that I thought it was for women's cricket, but it wasn't. It was that I remember now that the Pakistan team were based here for a couple of weeks, and it was used in that way. So a couple of things I said yesterday that weren't entirely right. Here's Alzari Joseph again, bowls to Lawrence, who works this one away through mid-wicket, gets a single, quite a flamboyant flick of the bat there, but didn't really time it, got it low down on the bat, and Gareth Roderick coming in from the mid-wicket boundary wearing his Worcestershire cap today, not his customary sun hat. Threw me a little bit to start with, and a single to Lawrence takes him on to 34 and brings Westley on to strike. 279 for 2. It's interesting, Dickie, I was saying earlier just before you joined me that last night Sir Alistair Cook was interviewed and had some interesting things to say about the game in general and about the pitch. Break off as Joseph comes in and bowls to Westley, who covers up on the back foot to this one. He said that it's really quite reassuring to hear such a down-to-earth attitude from a player who's achieved as much as he had, but he said, you know, always nice to get your first proper score of a season because you almost forget whether you can do it or not.
Yes, I'm sure.
And I think that chimes in with a lot of players who played cricket at whatever level, that, you know, that first score of a year is always one that you think, oh yeah, I can still do it. But he also said that he thought Dan Lawrence made batting look easier than anybody else during the day, which I think we agreed with. Joseph bowls to Westley, that's a good delivery, and he edges it down to third man for a single. Tom Fell, the fielder, could easily have gone to hand that. It was a good delivery from Joseph, bit of pace about it. But a single to Westley keeps the strike. He's on 88. It's 280 for 2. And he said he thought that it was a difficult pitch. The Worcestershire attack bowled well. They were skillful bowlers. There wasn't a lot in the pitch for seamers, and they stuck to their jobs very well. And you had to work really hard for your runs, he said. And then Dan Lawrence came in, and you know, I think we said it yesterday. He just made it look a different game for half an hour or so last night.
Mind you, you know, it's always a lot easier if number 3 goes in, you know, or number 4, sorry, Dan Lawrence, with a score of 210 for 2, as it was.
Barnard bowls to Westley, who edges down to third man and gets another single. It was a new ball, though, or a newish
yes,
ball when he came in.
But nonetheless, you know, if you look up in here, 210 for 2 as you're striding to the wicket, is an awful lot better than if it's just 10 for 2.
Absolutely, absolutely. But he did play fluently. I mean, he's not scored many this morning, and he's faced about 10 balls, but he was almost at a run a ball yesterday, which was, in the context of the day, quite interesting.
Well, even in those matches he played in the subcontinent.
Yeah. Barnard again to him. Lawrence, he pushes up to mid-off.
He was always willing to take the game to the bowler, wasn't he? He wasn't going to be crease-bound.
And that kind of ties in with one of those discussions we had yesterday about modern cricketers. It's the balance, isn't it? You know, if you can be positive but not reckless, then it can turn you into a very exciting. I mean, I would certainly say that's true of someone like Ben Stokes.
Yes.
You know, who can hit it with the best of them, but also has a good technique when the ball's doing a bit. It's Barnard again outside the off stump, left alone by Lawrence, taken low down by Cox. Watching Alzari Joseph down here at third man, just putting on his second sweater there. Also reminds me of something that was said I interviewed Alan Richardson, the Worcestershire bowling coach, last night, and you know, he said it was a tough day and they stuck at it and everything else, and I said to him, you have told Alzari Joseph, presumably, that there are times when we play cricket in this country and the temperature is in double figures. Barnard bowls, and there's that occasional surprise bouncer that he throws in, and negotiated well by Lawrence, who ducked underneath it. And he said, yes, he did take his sweater off in the last game at one stage, but I'm sure Alzari Joseph has been struck as much as anything by the temperature in England in the last few weeks. It's been very, very chilly since he arrived.
Certainly yesterday, when he wasn't bowling, he was fielding at third man. I'll come back to that in a moment.
Barnard again, bowls, and there's a big shout here as he hits Lawrence on the pad, pushing forward, and that was a confident appeal. Barnard is genuinely disappointed. I'm just going to have a look at the replay, and I think it hit him just outside the line.
Yeah.
He got a stride in, just fractionally outside the line. Good shout from Barnard. Disappointed not to have got a breakthrough, but umpire Lloyd, in my opinion anyway, having watched the replay, making the correct decision.
Yes, Joseph spent a lot of time, only about 25 yards away from us at third man, and he cut a very sad and cold figure, certainly for the latter part of the day.
It's Barnard in again, bowls, and Lawrence on the back foot drives, and it's brilliantly fielded by Darryl Mitchell, belying his years at short extra cover with a tumbling stop to his left. And there's no run off the last ball of the over from Ed Barnard. 22 overs, 9 maidens, 45 runs for no wickets for him. Essex 281 for 2, and they've added 15 runs this morning. Westley is 89, Lawrence is 34, and Dickie Davis of BBC Radio Essex will now take up the commentary.
Right, thanks Frank very much. Yep, so it is the much discussed Joseph, who's going to come into the attack from this end being the New Road end, the end from which we're commentating and always have done when we've been here. Alzari Joseph, right arm over the wicket, Antigan, and he's moving in to bowl to Tom Westley now. Bowls now outside the off stump, goes through to the keeper. Westley on 89? Yes, 89. The other scoreboard isn't working today. I use that one quite often to look at because it's considerably nearer, but the main one is just about on the edge of my sight range. One thing I must admit I have suffered during lockdown, I only realised this quite recently, is that I quite badly need an eye test, which is probably not the best thing for a cricket commentator to say. But let's just play down the offside, no addition to the score. That's a little bit of a caveat if anybody is watching on the stream and I misidentify a player. I can plead myopia. But I can see that the scoreboard says Essex are 281 for 2 and Westley's 89 and Lawrence 24. Joseph moves in again and bowls, and that's worked away backward of square on the onside just for a single to Westley, moves him into the 90s, or onto 90 exactly. So, well, very clearly we could have another centurion. Alistair Cook having scored that wonderful 115 yesterday. Well, I say wonderful, diligent 115. Priceless would probably also describe it. It's what opening batsmen are meant to do, of course, just stay there all day or a large part of the day and get a big score. Let's just play defensively.
Another thing that he said last night was that somebody asked him, you were clearly disappointed when you got out, and he said, yeah, absolutely. When you've worked that hard, you want to go on, and that the hunger that he still has,
yes,
still runs, is just not remarkable. It's admirable, I think, and
yes.
I hope it stays that way, and he carries on playing, because cricket needs characters like him, no question about it.
It certainly does. Joseph to Lawrence. Lawrence goes forward and then lifts the bat out of the way. It goes through to the wicket keeper. But I suppose the very best batsman, and obviously Cook numbers amongst those, as you're a batsman rather than a bowler, I'd imagine you're in a far better position than I am as a coach. But however good you have been, once your eye goes a little bit, then you know, the writing's on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question that. Some players go on longer than others. I mean, Darren Stevens is an absolute phenomenon,
yes,
isn't he?
I believe it's his birthday today.
Yeah, 45, it's incredible.
It is. In this day and age, it is, yes. I mean, famously, that's worked away for a single. Jack Hobbs scored more centuries after he was 40 than before it, but that is, you know, there are so many aspects of cricket or lots of sports or life generally that, you know, you can't compare one era with another because everything about it is different, really, which is why and bold attempt to come out. Looking at the sky away to that southwest where the weather comes from, it does look a little bit brighter than it did this time yesterday. It's nothing like unbroken blue sky, it's not, but there are glimpses of it, and it's looking promising.
Yeah, I've had a message from Mark Smith who says, good morning, wanted to get your opinions on the format of the Championship. Do you think it's here to stay, or do you think it'll go back to 2 divisions? I do hope that's the case. I think he means that it stays, because it's nice to play more teams and matches. I don't know is the answer to that, Mark, and I think a lot of people quite like the new format. I'll just break off as Joseph bowls.
And it's down the leg side and well taken, diving away to his left. by Cox,
I think
undoubtedly.
a lot of people quite like it. It's kind of a carryover from the Bob Willis Trophy last year, which was so successful.
Yes.
I think one of the things that some of the players have said to me they like is playing against counties that they haven't played against for a good while in first class cricket. I know Worcestershire and Warwickshire will be really enjoying the possibility of playing each other in a first class game. Whether it'll stay or not, I don't know. I think it remains to be seen how successful it is. There'll be a review, I'm sure, at the end of the season.
Joseph outside the off stump, allowed to go through to the keeper. Well, certainly, obviously, under these circumstances, it's fairly sort of immaterial. But I think the fans and supporters like it. But there again, for the same reason that it's nice to play different counties, and also in what you might call a normal season, as soon as the fixture list comes out, a lot of members and supporters picks up a few away breaks. You know, I mean, they would, you know, there would have been so many Essex supporters here because everybody loves Worcester, and you look through that and you say, oh yes, I definitely go to Worcester at the end of April. That's outside the off stump, and yeah, new ground. I mean, Essex haven't played Derbyshire for a while, I don't think, nor Durham. So yeah, it is, I think. But the risk of being cynical, when it's easy to be cynical sometimes about the ECB, sometimes, you know, what the spectators and supporters want is the very low down amongst their considerations. It's more likely to be what the sponsors want. Bob emails as Joseph moves in and bowls. Slightly over-pitched but not timed properly, played out to mid-off. He says, this is the first time I've watched cricket on this site, and it is a surprisingly nostalgic experience, not to mention hearing the voice of my old colleague Frank Watson. When cricket was shown on TV in the 1960s with no microphone nearer than the boundary, as here, the difference between the speed of sound and the speed of light meant that you heard the crack of leather and willow about half a second after the moment you saw the ball strike the bat, as Joseph moves in and bowls, and it's down the leg side, a sort of a vague attempt to play the ball, but it didn't seem to have a lot of conviction about it by Westley, and it went through to the keeper. I'm sure that's what misled me into playing every shot through my career about half a second too late. So from Bob, who's obviously a former colleague of yours.
What's his surname?
Bob Stone.
Ah, yes, Bob Stone.
Who lives in Worcester. He's even given
former head of classics at King's School, I think. Bob, keen cricket fan.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope you're well, Bob. Lovely to hear from you.
And that's outside the off stump. I obviously won't read these out on the airwaves. Come back to that in a moment. Obviously I won't read those out on air, but I'll pass them on to you, Frank, to convene. don't usually qualify the top group in September seem to have meaningless fixtures in September. Regards from Dean. Well, I suppose after a certain amount of time in the season, that applies to whatever format you have, doesn't it, really? If you happen to be lying in, 13th position or lower, then, although of course then there's the threat of relegation. I don't mean 13th or lower, because of course we're not all 18 in one, but alright then, 6, 7, 8, 9. Another change at the
Pennington.
New Road end. Pennington back into the attack. So yes, well, whatever we say won't really make any difference to the result. As Doris Day used to say, "Que sera, sera, what will be, will be." And but personally, I'd quite like to see this system maintained, because it's fun playing different oppositions and going to different grounds. It's Pennington. Tall, fair-haired, moves in now right up over the wicket, bowls, and probably coming back a little bit, because Cox started to take it fairly conventionally and then moved away to his left and took it by his left shin, more or less.
Yeah, went quite a long way after it had gone past
yes,
the stumps,
exactly.
actually.
Yeah.
Some bowlers just make that happen, and I was a keeper. It's very annoying.
Oh, right.
At times when it happened, they go so far and so late. Just possibly to do with how they've got their wrist position or how they're holding the seam. That one went quite a long way after it had gone past.
Didn't it? Pennington again, and outside the off stump this time. This time, if anything, Cox has to move slightly more to his right, to the offside. Lawrence on 40, Westley on 90.
Yeah, a little bit of movement from Pennington away. Started it a little bit straight, that one, but it shows that it's going both ways. I was sorry Joseph got one or two to swing this morning as well, so there's maybe a little bit more movement in the air than there was yesterday, possibly because it's a tad warmer.
Pennington in again, bowls outside the off stump, and Lawrence sort of deigns to go forward onto his leading foot, but then doesn't even sort of condescend to play it, doesn't even leave the ball really, just ignores it really. He plays the ignore. And the ball goes through to the keeper. I had a long email from Michael in Pudsey, a famous name in cricketing terms, the great Sir Leonard Hutton came from Pudsey, as that's outside the off stump, taken by Cox, and again Lawrence has the luxury of declining to play. I hope this email finds you all well and in the finest of fettles. I'm thoroughly enjoying listening to your, as always, superb commentary, always informative and entertaining, while watching the live feed on a certain internet video site on my television. I'm also enjoying the improved coverage with regard to more camera angles. Yes, it is good, isn't it? And movement, so we can see a bit more of what's going on in the field as well as on the pitch. I watched the warm-up matches. I'll come back to that in a moment, as that's again outside the off stump. So yeah, we've now had 4 deliveries of this over, and I don't think Lawrence has been obliged to play any of them. Certainly he hasn't had to play 3 of them. 5 balls have gone now, not 4. They hadn't clicked up the other one. I watched the warm-up games, which of course didn't have any commentary, and tried filling in every so often with my own commentary broadcasting to the living room. The cat didn't seem too impressed, so I changed, so I shan't give up the day job. Pennington in again. And yet again, Lawrence ignores, well, does actually play a leave. So that's one of those strange overs. You know, statistics tell you nothing. One of those strange overs. It'll
Sported by the players as Barnard is in and bowls to Westley, who pushes out on the offside, and there's no run as it's fielded by D'Oliveira. He is putting on a third one. Alzari Joe. Cold day for Worcestershire yesterday, and every likelihood that it will be the same again today.
Yes, there is.
Although it's a bit warmer, we think, but we are behind glass here.
It certainly looks a bit warmer, but looks can be deceptive.
Here's Barnard again, in past umpire Lloyd, bowls, and forward comes Westley. Looks to drive, but doesn't really time it. Barnard's bowled pretty well, I think, this morning. He's gone for 2 boundaries, I think, but generally he's been bowling unchanged from the Diglis end, and he's been pretty his 11 maidens, no wicket for 50, his tidy figures, and a 6 288 for 2.
And yeah, thanks Mike for your link to the email. He's intrigued, as a lot of Essex supporters are, about the inclusion of Snater. He says he may be the new golden arm factor that we've lost with the, oh, I'm sure this is tongue-in-cheek, this next word he's used, this Sussexisation of Mr. Papara. Yes, we know what you mean. And he also says that apparently Sir Don Bradman, his eyesight wasn't too good because he actually failed in his attempts to become a pilot when he joined up in the war, but he still managed to get a few runs.
Dylan Pennington from the New Road end in, bowls to Lawrence, who pushes out into the covers, and again there's no run, but he did make him play at the time, which is good. Pennington in his last over, pacey, and certainly made the ball move a little bit, but would have been disappointed with where he started it, so that he wasn't really getting the batsman to play as much as he would have liked. It's a lot of effort when you're a big pace bowler to run in and bowl and not make the batsman play. Pennington is in there, bowls, and this one's short and wide, and Lawrence cracks it off the back foot, but it's very well fielded by Brett D'Oliveira, diving to his right at short extra cover, or shortish extra cover.
Nick has contacted me via social media saying you're probably aware of this already, but the sound keeps going on on the
stream.
on the
Yeah,
stream, yes.
I have been told, and I have informed who the person who told me that there's nothing we can do about it. As Pennington is in again and bowls, and Lawrence is forward again up to mid off. But I have tried to report it and make sure that it happens less frequently. I do hope it isn't disturbing you, or disturbing you too much, but it really is beyond our control. We sit in a commentary box doing our commentary, and the feed is taken from our commentary is taken, but what happens to it thereafter
I would have no idea.
It's beyond our control, I'm afraid.
It's probably bounced to a satellite.
We did test it this morning. Here's Pennington in again, bowls to Lawrence, who gets a single, just goes on the back foot, eases this one off the face down to third man, where Fell is the fielder, and the total goes on to 289 for 2. Lawrence goes to 41, and this partnership already worth 79. Seems a long time since Alistair Cook was out, and even longer since Nick Brown was out LBW to Alzari Joseph. That was in the afternoon session yesterday. So just the 2 wickets to fall. It's been a tough life being a Worcestershire bowler in the last 10 days or so, since they bowled Nottinghamshire out in the first innings in the last game here. Here's Pennington in, he bowls, and Westley is getting a run this time on the back foot, turning it on his favoured leg side. Gareth Roderick coming in to do the fielding, and Westley scampering up to the other end moves on to 91, and the total to 290 for 2.
Yeah, Stephen in Hockley makes a good point. He says that one of the drawbacks from the supporters' point of view is that you don't know where the fixtures are going to be for the second half of the season, which is very true, of course. And of course this season that will probably be even more difficult to plan, because with so many people taking holidays in this country rather than abroad.
Pennington in again, bowls, and forward comes Lawrence, pushing up to mid-on. Yeah, that's an interesting consideration, isn't it, really? If you don't know what the fixtures are going to be, you can't plan too far ahead, and the
and mind you, it did, with all due respect to D'Oliveira, it did rather look as if it deserved it, and it's a nice short boundary on that side as well. So D'Oliveira moves in again, bowls. Lawrence stretches forward, pushes out into the covers, and that brings up his 50.
77 balls, I think.
77 balls, yes. And Essex is scored to 300, so two little milestones there. Another bonus point for Essex, and another half century for Lawrence. The next milestone, and if there were spectators here, they'd be anticipating it. Spectators always like to look ahead to the next milestone. They would hope that the next one is when Westley scored 8 more runs for his century. Just plays that defensively off the front foot, plays that fairly defensively off the back foot, and it trickles out on the onside. And sorry, I just took that over off Frankfurt as a disappeared.
I was actually just going to see if I could report the issues that people were saying they were having with the commentary on the stream, and have done everything we can now. I'm hoping that it's up and running again, and you won't have any more problems. So 300 for 2 Essex, so they have their third batting bonus point. Worcestershire as yet to register a point, having taken just 2 wickets, and quite a nice day or two to be an Essex bowler, I think, since the toss was won yesterday. A little warm up yesterday, put your feet up, watch Sir Alistair bat all day, watch the skipper carry on into day 2 as Pennington comes in now and bowls outside the off stump to Westley, who traps this down into the ground. Lawrence, I beg your pardon, traps this down into the ground, and it runs out off his foot onto the offside. And then come back in the evening and come back in the morning and have another little warm up and bowl a few in the nets and so on, and then you can put your feet up again on the balcony, perhaps behind the glass with a cup of coffee, and just watch the batters do it all over again. 300 for 2. Here's Pennington in now to bowl to Lawrence, who gets a bottom edge to this one, and it just bounces a couple of times before it goes through to Ben Cox. I've known quite a few professional county cricket bowlers over the years who've told me that their favourite batsmen weren't always the ones who scored the most runs. They were the ones who occupied the crease for the longest time amongst their own teammates, I mean. Because, you do spend quite a lot of time up there in the dressing room.
Oh, good lord, yes.
At the moment, Worcestershire spending quite a lot of time out there on the grass, though, as Pennington comes in and bowls again to Lawrence, who pushes this out square on the offside. And it's fielded by Ed Barnard coming in from cover. And there is no addition to the score.
Chris says he's thoroughly enjoying this match in between end-of-term video conferences with students, when I do at least turn the commentary down. And
shouldn't say that, really.
I'll read his second paragraph when I've got time, 'cause it's quite interesting. Goes down memory lane.
Pennington again in, past umpire White, bowls outside the off stump. Nice looking drive from Lawrence, but straight to the fielder at mid-off. So the toil continues for the Worcestershire bowlers. The overnight score for Essex was 266 for 2, if you're just joining us. They've added 34 to that to register their third batting bonus point, with few alarms this morning. Probably the closest we've seen to a wicket was an LBW shout that Ed Barnard had that hit the batsman just fractionally outside the off stump. Here's Pennington in again now, bowls to Lawrence, who just takes his bat out of the way of that, and that's one of those that just proves that there is still a little bit in this pitch, because that one just fizzed a little bit. Lawrence, quite an extravagant leave, but that climbed as it went through to Ben Cox, who took it in front of his chin, really, with reverse cup style, fingers pointing upwards. Just now and again, Pennington and in particular, and Joseph, have managed to coax a little bit of response from this pitch.
Yep, so it's 300 for 2, but there's still challenges out there for the batsmen. They can't take anything for granted.
Encouraging for the Essex seamers that I've just been talking about, sitting with their feet up. Here's Pennington again. He's in and he bowls, and Lawrence is pushing up to mid-on. Mitchell the fielder, end of the over, and no addition. 300 for 2. Good over, that one from Pennington, or better anyway.
Well, Chris says, and thank you for helping an American friend of mine from Marblehead, Massachusetts, gain better familiarity with the game. Your commentary yesterday sent him down the rabbit holes of Basil D'Oliveira, Keith Miller and Trevor Bailey, with a little David Gower thrown in. He messaged me at the end of the day's play to report he'd spent much of it enmeshed in cricket Wikipedia. Well, excellent. If we can educate the Americans, or those living in America, as regards a little bit of cricket nostalgia, then that's another gain to my mind. D'Oliveira to continue from the Diglis end. Jez in Banbury, I'll tell you about what he's got to say in a moment.
D'Oliveira starts a new over with a full length delivery, which goes out on the offside. They pick up another single, and Westley it was, driving that one through the covers to move on to 93, and the total to 301 for 2, bringing Dan Lawrence onto strike. D'Oliveira over the wicket to Lawrence, who uses his feet to this one and just pushes the ball back to the bowler, and there's no addition. So Pennington 21 overs, 6 maidens, no wicket for 50. After that last over, D'Oliveira in again now, bowls, and Lawrence drives on the offside. Ricky Vessel's at short extra cover does the fielding, and there's no run. Pennington's been pretty economical then. 21 overs for 50, and Barnard 25 overs for 50. D'Oliveira again bowls, shorter this time, and Lawrence just gets back inside that and steers it out on the offside for a single. 302 for 2, he goes to 51, and yeah, we look down those figures, Dickie, there's nothing disastrous there, there's nothing, nothing horrendous, because they've been quite tidy. They've made Essex work hard for these runs, but equally there's not been a great deal of threat. D'Oliveira bowls flatter, shorter on the back foot. Westley drives to Barnard at extra cover. D'Oliveira once again in, bowls, and this one is again pushed through quite quickly and pushed out on the offside by Westley. End of a tidy over from D'Oliveira. 302 for 2. Westley now 93, Lawrence 51. No wickets have gone down today.
Right, Jez has apparently been in touch with you, Frank, about this, about picking a team of players based purely on their fielding ability, and he has decided, well, I mean, these are the sort of discussions that can go on indefinitely, really. He says Gooch, Gibbs, Hussain, Moore, Randall, Rhodes, both of them not, Harper, Boyce, Anderson. So yeah, you pays your money, you takes your choice. He says, I'm really enjoying the commentary and discussions. I sit at my home office ordering lawn and garden machinery, spare parts. Oh, excellent. Yes. So
Dylan Pennington from the New Road end moves in now. Fast approach. He's in, he bowls, and forward comes Westley, pushes back up the pitch. 93 to Westley, 224 balls he has faced. So his 100 is actually going, I think, if he gets it, to be slower than Alistair Cook's was yesterday. Cook's 100 came off 231 balls. So similar scoring rates, and I think we felt when Cook was out that Westley might increase his scoring rate, but he didn't need to, because Lawrence sort of did that for him, and he's beaten by a really good one here from Pennington, a really good one. And this is it, just every now and again we're seeing a ball still respond, really, and that one came back through the gate, climbed high as Cox took it away to his left, and was a very, very good delivery. Pennington just seems to have that ability every now and again, just when he gets everything right, gets his rhythm right, his wrist position right, to get something special, even out of a surface like this. The challenge for him as he grows as a cricketer is to do that more consistently. He's in again now and bowls, and Westley is on the back foot pushing out on the onside. What that does to the batsman, of course, is it just sows that seed in the batsman's mind.
Well, exactly, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you would know better than I, but yes, as long, so much of this game is played in the mind, as long as the batsman thinks, well, this could be the one.
I'm 93 not out, and I've just been completely done by one there, and it could happen, and he could have got a little inside edge to it.
Thanks, Bill, for your email, which you'll appreciate I can't read out on air, but thank you very much.
302 for 2. Pennington turns again now and comes in to bowl to Westley. Lawrence, I beg your pardon. Well, still no wickets for Worcestershire this morning, I'm afraid. We've had an hour's play. Essex have progressed from their overnight position of 266 for 2 to 302 for 2. Their captain, Tom Westley, who made a double hundred against Worcestershire at Chelmsford a couple of weeks ago, is moving towards three figures. He's currently on 93. Dan Lawrence is on 51, and the visitors, after 112 overs, are 302 for 2. As Pennington bowls again to Lawrence, who drops that down on the onside, and it's fielded by Mitchell coming in from short mid-wicket, and there's no addition to the score.
Thanks, Nick in Hanya in Crete, for pointing out that, well, at the time you sent it, it wasn't quite sure whether Essex would reach the 300 within the 110 overs in which bonus points are available, but they did just, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, they timed it so they just reached it in time.
Yeah, that 6 off D'Oliveira probably helped
yes.
particularly, didn't it, in that cause. So, in comes Pennington again to complete his over. He bowls, and it's driven up to mid-on by Westley, fielded by Joseph. End of another tidy over from Dylan Pennington. Total is 302 for 2. Pennington now 22 overs, 7 maidens, no wicket for 50, and Dickie Davis, after a few more words, will continue the commentary.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Had an email from Roy. I suppose it's Roy in Ludlow rather than Roy. I'm not quite sure now. Ludlow is his surname. Anyway, he says, yes, thank you very much. Enjoying the commentary. I recall, this is addressed to me, that you and your wife and I were in the same B&B in North Piddle a few years ago for a match at Worcester. Yes, we were, that's right, I remember that. Yeah, splendid place. We could, of course, had provisionally booked up the same for this week, but wives and partners, no members of the public are allowed in games at the moment, unfortunately. It's just played defensively. Well, defensively, in as much as it went to a fielder, but it was played with a certain aggressive intent by Westley, who came down and got to the pitch of the ball, but only played it straight to mid-on. Graham Gooch was still a magnificent batsman in his 40s. Yes, he was indeed. We'd been talking about mature batsman, and that's short of a length, cracked away through the offside. Ball crosses the boundary at extra cover, having been played with considerable ability off the back foot by Westley, who moves on to 97. So, well, another one who appears to like the prospect of the Worcestershire attack. And so thanks, Roy, very much for that indeed. Yes, I remember staying at that place. Has just pushed out defensively on the offside. No further addition to the score. Philip in Hong Kong has just played defensively. trickles back to the bowler. .306 for 2, Westley 97, Lawrence 51. Short of a length, cracked away off the back foot, square on the offside or just in front of square. They go through for a single. End of the over, 307 for 2. Philip says, great to watch ball by ball from Hong Kong. I've been an Essex fan and supporter for all my life, 50 plus years. Family originally from Ilford, used to play with Alan Lilly and the rest of the Ilford Colt boys. We had some big players. Yes, Ilford have, well, produced the likes of Nasser Hussain along the way. I think even Graham Gooch play for Ilford? I think he may have done. So yes, I mean, as we were saying yesterday, both in Worcestershire and in Essex, club cricket has produced an immense number of players, which is excellent to see in both points of view. Dean asked me how my walk back was last night. Well, it wasn't what was planned, because I just wanted to get home as quickly, home back to my digs as quickly as possible. I planned doing it tonight instead. It really sounds like my sort of walk along a river and then a canal. Let's just play defensively. Trickles out on the onside. Still Pennington bowling from this end. We're getting through the emails now. Chris says, I'm a Worcestershire follower for more than 60 years. I have to congratulate you for having a tried and trusted means of communication other than Twitter, etc. So getting to my point, which is really for Frank, think unfortunately Worcestershire are lacking an X-factor bowler in all departments.
Yeah.
As Pennington moves in and bowls, and it's just played out in the offside.
Yeah, that might be. Somebody tweeted me about an X-factor bowler. Going back to the tried and trusted method of communication. Yeah, I mean, I'm on email, but I'm not going to put my personal email out there, because who knows what I would receive. But we haven't got a dedicated BBC Heaven Worcester cricket email account. It's possible, I suppose. As for an X-factor bowler, I think everybody wants one, don't they?
Yes, Pennington in again, bowls. Westley plays solidly defensively, trickles out on the offside.
I think Worcestershire have tried as hard as anybody, I'm sure. I mean, they're trying to produce their own bowlers. They are producing academy cricketers as much as any county, I suppose. They put a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy and resources into the academy, and also, they look around to see who's out there and to see who they might be able to recruit. It's a difficult competitive world trying to find wicket-taking bowlers, I think.
Well, it is. That's just nudged down to third man for a single, which takes Westley on to 99. Maybe this goes back in part to what we were saying yesterday, which wasn't entirely tongue-in-cheek. Why nowadays, if you've got skills and when you're a youngster you just play cricket, you don't often specialise in one thing or the other, you just love playing the game. Why would anybody want to be a bowler? It's a batsman's game. There's generally speaking more glory for batsmen, therefore there's possibly more money for batsmen, there's more publicity for batsmen, greater chance of being captain if you're a batsman, and it's an easier game generally speaking. There are a lot of generalisations there, and obviously you have to accept that with more than a pinch of salt, but whereas bowlers, especially the seam bowlers, are the real workhorses of the game of cricket, and I don't envy their lifestyle at all. They have to be more careful with, well, not just when they're playing cricket, but they're all their time they've been careful. It's more important. Somebody's going to pick me up on this, but never mind. You get to a certain age when you don't care if you get picked up. To a certain extent, bowlers have to be more careful about keeping fit, because it is, I would have thought, a more physically demanding job than batting. Maybe that sort of attitude is now filtering through, and the the glut of one-day cricket and 2020 cricket. It's always the batsmen that apparently they want to go and see, and the batsmen generally who command the big bucks in the transfer market. That's outside the off stump, goes through to the wicketkeeper. If that all sounds a little bit fatalistic, then I apologise, but it's only one of many views, and I'm not suggesting that mine is any more likely to be true than anybody else's, but we're all entitled to opinions as long as they are only opinions.
Yeah, I think when it's an interesting one, isn't it? When somebody comes into the game, I mean, I was talking about Ed Barnard yesterday. Sanitisation break, everybody, in case you're listening and wondering why we're not talking about action. Ed Barnard said he'd always wanted to be an all-rounder and regarded batting and bowling as of equal importance. I just think, when young cricketers start playing the game, boys or girls, generally, although they might like doing both disciplines, they generally will probably have more of an aptitude for one than the other. You'll get somebody who just think, it could be a really good bowler, this boy or this girl. And if you develop that, and coaches and mentors and teachers and so on develop that, and just develop a love of the game, they're happy to become a bowler.
Yes.
I don't think they're not looking at the business side of it, as it were. I'll break
well,
off
no,
D'Oliveira
not
start.
at that stage, no. D'Oliveira moves in, bowls, that's just pushed out on the onside.
Yeah, and I think it's a more cynical approach later on, isn't it?
Yes,
when you
of course
think,
it is.
if I was a batter, I could be making more of an impression here.
And yes, I mean, it's just playing professional sport is not a better way of making a living, it's just another way of making a living. Same as people in the show business and things who are sort of lauded and worshipped. They're no better than anybody else, they just have different skills. They might be useless when it comes to painting and decorating or driving a bus. As this is just played out the onside, and that is Westley's 100. It was slightly short of a length, and he just guided it into the mid-wicket area, and they went through for a comfortable single. So Westley reaches his 100 of 236 deliveries, and gets a fairly lavish hug from. I suppose they're all in the same bubble, so that is acceptable. Fairly lavish hug from Dan Lawrence.
12 fours and a 6.
As D'Oliveira moves in again and forces Lawrence onto the back foot, and with a degree of haste as well. He kept it out confidently and competently enough, but
pushed it through, didn't he?
Did push
He's
it
bowling
through,
in he's bowling in almost his sort of one-day style now. Takes quite a long delivery stride and gets quite low and fires it through.
And again, Lawrence plays it with utmost concentration off the back foot, with his head right over the ball.
Yes, Debbie Knight, who's an Essex fan, who contacted me yesterday. She says something about the bowler issue.
That's just chopped away. Backward of square on the offside, fielded by Joseph, no difference to the score.
To take issue with Dick, if we look at the IPL, the top earners outside the high-profile homegrown players are Chris Morris, all-rounder, and Pat Cummins, bowler.
Oh, right.
There you go. So, yeah, well, there are exceptions. I think we're just making sort of general observations, aren't we, really? 311 for 2 at the end of that over, and I think we're going to see Charlie Morris have a bowl now for the first time today. Bowled pretty tidily again yesterday, as he usually does. 18 overs, 7 maidens, no wicket for 52. He's going to come into the attack. I don't think he bowled from the new road end yesterday. He's going to have a bowl from this end. And it's quite interesting how the Worcestershire captains, because Libby's skippering this game, have quite deliberately shared the bowling load amongst the seamers very evenly. If you look back through the games that have been played so far, generally, not to the letter, but generally the load has been shared fairly evenly so far in this innings. For example, Morris has bowled 18, Joseph has bowled 24, Barnard 25, D'Oliveira 23, Morris, if he bowls 3 or 4 now, will be into the 20s. They're all round about the same number of overs.
Yes.
It's quite important that you share out the load, particularly on this sort of pitch.
So Morris moves in, right arm over the wicket to the right-handed Westley, who gets it, rears, and he's in a little bit of trouble here. Hit him on the right
That's
hand.
unusual from Morris.
And he instantly dropped the bat, took his glove off, and is now ruefully staring at his hand. He's not called for any form of medical aid. Indeed, he's now putting his glove back on. So it was sometimes those things are as much shock as anything else. Well, no, he's now taking his glove off and having another look. And I think the Essex physio is going on to have a quick look at it, which gives me an opportunity.
He's
decided.
okay, I think.
No, shall I, shan't I? Shall I, shan't I? No, you're not needed, chum. No, off you go. No. So, Wesley's going to continue. That first delivery of Morris's spell rather took him by surprise, and certainly reared up somewhat uncomfortably. Well, from Wesley's point of view, very uncomfortably. Probably got a nasty bruised hand now. So Morris moves in again and bowls. And it's worked away on the onside for a single, down to deep mid-wicket. And the score moves on to 311 for 2. No, 312 for 2. They've just clicked up that 312th. So bonus points are now irrelevant. We're into the 116th over. But runs are very far from irrelevant. Ideally, I know it's not an ideal world, well, we know that only too well at the moment, but ideally Essex would like to probably have enough to be able to declare round about tea time and set their hosts a challenging last hour and a half or so.
That'll be the plan. Just going back to Debbie's email, tweet about the wages in the IPL. I mean, she's absolutely right. It is quite interesting. The IPL's slightly a special case, isn't it? Because the odd bowler that really makes a difference in that sort of cricket becomes even more priceless, don't they?
Yeah.
Simply because all the other bowlers don't make that much difference.
No. That's just played back to the bowler, no addition to the score. Oh yes, a shrewd judge of the game is Debbie, and there's no keener supporter of Essex, I don't think. I'm pretty sure that had normality been reigning, she'd have been here. She'd have undoubtedly.
She also mentioned, well, she would, I'm sure, because she told me earlier, I had one of my best cricket experiences ever at Worcestershire a couple of years ago. Adopted by some locals for the duration. Even went for dinner one evening, and one lovely lady baked a cake.
And yes, look forward to seeing you, Debbie, when the public are allowed into the ground at Chelmsford. Or, well, everywhere, but more likely that our paths are going to cross at Chelmsford. That's just worked away on the onside.
But yeah, going back, whatever's most difficult to find is most expensive, isn't it? That's what I'm getting at. Really.
Yes,
so
yes.
You know, if you like they say, goal scorers in football are the most expensive, and a brilliant, effective bowler in a franchise cricket, really priceless, because they're so difficult to find, for all the reasons that we talked about yesterday.
Yep. As Morris moves in and bowls, and that's worked away on the offside, no addition to the score. So yes, the rarer something is, the more valuable and valued it is, which comes back to this glut of 2020 cricket, or even 100. So therefore, you know, the opposite also applies. The more sixes are hit to the ground, to the boundaries, either naturally or making the bats heavier or the boundaries shorter, the more there are of them, the less valuable and the less valued they are. So yeah, it works both ways. I keep meaning to read this email from Philip. He talks again about the commentary coming and going. Well, as we said, there's not a lot we can do about that. I'm sorry. He's in Hong Kong. Essex are batting very well and they're making it look easy. Possibly get over 500 runs. But as the previous weeks have shown, opposition teams seem to get close to Essex also, as that's played out into covers, or no, not covers, wide mid-off. Good bit of fielding there, diving away. Sprawling stop. Is that Libby? Not sure.
Libby, yeah.
Libby, the skipper. So Essex look at the bowlers maybe to win this game, as this is short of a length, played out again into the covers.
Yeah, going back to the X factor idea of a bowler, I think what a lot of counties want is not exactly an X factor bowler. I'll just break off.
As D'Oliveira moves in and bowls to Westley, who plays it out to mid-on.
It's somebody who can just guarantee them, 50, 60 wickets year in, year out. That's what you really want, isn't it?
No.
Somebody's going to play every game, stay fit, and pick up 50, 60 wickets in every season.
That's played solidly and defensively.
That's what I'd want if I was a coach.
Sun's still shining, and there's more blue sky than there was an hour ago, so it's looking promising, I must admit. And that's played hard. It's an interesting over from the batsman's point of view. Nearly every delivery, Westley has played with great authority, but always found the fielders. But he's hit every ball quite solidly out of the middle of the bat. But I think it's probably a maiden so far. That's another example. It was short of a length. He played the shot quite hard into the covers, but straight to the fielder. There was just one other point I wanted to get across from Philip's email. Who is this new bowler, Shane Slater? He plays T20, not seen much of him in 4-day cricket. You haven't seen anything of him in 4-day cricket, because this is his Essex Championship debut. He says, what's the tactics here? Well, I think we agree the tactics would probably be to pile on the runs as much as possible by tea or thereabouts, and declare and try and get amongst the host's wickets in the evening. It's what most sides would do in this position. It's the pretty obvious tactics to adopt from this position, I would have thought.
Charlie Morris to continue from the New Road end, bowls a full length delivery to Lawrence, who drives very sweetly and very positively straight down the ground for 4. Lovely shot from Lawrence, minimum of effort, maximum of effectiveness, and he picks up a boundary and moves on to 58. 318 for 2. There was just one ball in that over from D'Oliveira to Westley that caused problems. Westley almost got a leading edge, and it just went wide of the bowler's right hand, and there was a little bit of interest and excitement out there. Few and far between opportunities for Worcestershire. No chances offered this morning. Morris did get one to rear quite fiercely and hit Westley on the hand in his last over. This one is much fuller of length, and Lawrence just pushes out on the offside, and it's fielded in the backward point position by Ed Barnard. 318 for 2. I wonder what Alzari Joseph thinks of playing cricket at Worcester. He started at Derby and we had a decent start, and then he came here and he played against Notts, and saw what happened with that one, and no wickets on the last day, and then yesterday only 2 wickets all day, both of which he got. Sure, he thinks it's a lovely ground as Morris is in and bowls, and Lawrence does play a slightly false shot, slicing this one away on the offside past the diving Ed Barnard. Deep gully. The fielding is completed by Dylan Pennington down at third man. Barnard didn't get a hand to it, but it was in the air, and it offered a little bit of hope. As it was 2 runs to Lawrence. He goes to 60, 320 for 2. Joseph will say, well, people told me it was a lovely ground. Yeah, sure, yes it is. And people told me about the cathedral. Yeah, they didn't tell me that it was like bowling on a feather bed.
In January.
Of course, it's nobody's fault. The ground staff have done a great job to get pitches out here at all, considering it was underwater a few weeks ago. As Morris bowls again to Lawrence, who works this one away wide of the aforementioned Alzari Joseph, who's moving to his right at mid-on, and they take 2 more. So fairly untroubled progress now. This partnership is well over 100 now, 12 runs they've added since Alistair Cook chopped on to Ozori Joseph in the evening session yesterday, and pretty much untroubled progress certainly this morning, although, as I keep saying, almost as a desperate attempt to keep Worcestershire fans listening, the odd ball still misbehaving just slightly as Morris is in now. Bowls, this one's full and driven back past the stumps. Joseph moves to his left at mid-on, but he's quite deep, and they get a single, and Dan Lawrence is visibly annoyed with himself that he didn't hit that for 4. I think he just feels that he might just have lost his shape a little bit on that drive and dragged it a bit to mid-on, whereas if he'd have held his shape he would have hit it a bit straight down the ground. That's my reading of it anyway, from wide mid-on. 323 for 2. Lawrence on 63. Westley now on 102 as Morris is in and bowls to him, and he just drops this down on the offside. It runs into the sort of third slip area, picked up by Barnard coming in from backward point. End of the over. 323 for 2. Westley 102. His 100 came off 236 balls with 12 fours and a 6, and that's pretty close to Alistair Cook's 100 yesterday, which was off 231 balls, although he did hit 15 boundaries. So is D'Oliveira going to continue? Yes, he is going to continue from the Diglis end. He's got one slip and then a backward point, and then a man on the drive, as it were, on the offside, Ricky Vessels, in that sort of close catching position. And then he's got a man sweeping the offside boundary, a deepish mid-off, a long on, a mid-wicket, and a deep square leg. He bowls. This one again is fizzed through quite quickly, skids on. Lawrence is on the back foot, just pushing out into the covers where Vessels does the fielding. Over again in there, bowls. This one's a little bit slower, a little bit more flighted, and Lawrence goes back and steers it through that big gap between cover and backward point. Picks up a single as Gareth Roderick comes off the rope in front of, well, a long way in front of the ladies' pavilion, because the rope is in about 30 yards on that side of the ground. A couple of rolled up tarpaulins behind him, and the Worcestershire substitutes, the 12th men, keeping themselves company on a couple of chairs that they brought in from the side of the ground to the boundary as Westley whips this one from D'Oliveira through mid-wicket for 4. We've said ever since the start of his innings that's his strong area, and that one was slightly over-pitched on leg stump, and he just punched it with his bottom hand through that vacant area for 4 to go to 106 and take the total to 328 for 2. Yeah, the Worcestershire subs who have to keep running on to take sweaters off and take on hand gel and so on every few overs. D'Oliveira bowls. This is driven to Vessels at extra cover, and it's too far to keep going up and down the stairs from the dressing room, so they've taken a couple of chairs and are sitting out in the sunshine. And it is a little bit warmer today, although I can't imagine they're too warm sat there. As D'Oliveira's in, bowls, and down the pitch comes Westley and drives very sweetly up to mid-off. Jake Libby moving smartly to his left does the fielding. He's deep though. If you imagine a 30-yard circle, he'd probably be on the edge of it or just outside. So they take a single, and Westley goes to 107. 329 for 2. Update for BBC Hereford Worcester FM listeners imminent as D'Oliveira bowls again. This one down the leg side, and Lawrence just tickles this away down to long leg for 4. Very short boundary. Probably would have been a couple if the rope was out on a normal sized first class ground, but given the situation of this pitch, that is a very, very short boundary down to the 7 side, and 4 fairly easy runs for Lawrence. So when you're batting, every now and again you get a boundary and you just think, yeah, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but it was almost just too easy. D'Oliveira just drifted into his pads and he just flicked it away, and you get exactly the same reward as you do for a full-blown smashing cover drive or square cut. But there you go, 68 to Lawrence, 333 for 2.
Alan emails pointing out that one advantage bowlers do have over batsmen is that they can make more mistakes. A batsman can possibly make one mistake and he's out.
Absolutely.
Well, he could also make several mistakes and not get out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I take your point. Yes, you can bowl. And,
it's like goalkeepers, isn't it? Goalkeeper makes a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
He also reminds us that Dennis Compton was a very good footballer as well.
He was.
Played for the Arsenal.
And his brother, Leslie.
Yes,
well.
Leslie, wasn't it?
Indeed,
yes.
Here's Charlie Morris. He comes in to bowl to Westley. He bowls and Westley looks to play a big drive and just gets a toe on it and squeezes it to mid-wicket where Alzari Joseph does the fielding. 334 for 2. Takes Westley on to 108. Got a lovely Dennis Compton story which I have told on air before, but it bears repeating. I'll just wait till I've done my update for Hereford and Worcester so I don't have to interrupt it, and then I'll tell it again. People will have heard it before, some, but it is a lovely story, and it might bring a smile to one or two faces. I hope, he says, setting himself up terribly badly. 334 for 2. Charlie Morris is coming in now from the New Road end, and he bowls to Lawrence, who just pushes this away on the onside for a single. It really is looking very straightforward out there at the moment for these Essex batsmen. Lawrence moves on to 69 off 109 balls. 335 for 2. Still toiling away the Worcestershire bowlers, but without success this morning, I'm afraid. 335 for 2 now, Essex. They began the day on 266 for 2. Tom Westley, their captain, has progressed to 180, made a double 100 against Worcestershire at Chelmsford 2 or 3 weeks ago, so he's enjoying the Worcestershire attack. Dan Lawrence is with him, he's on 69, and so far they've made pretty much untroubled progress this morning on what looks a very, very good batting surface indeed. Essex currently then in the 120th over, 335 for 2. So Morris in again, or will be in a moment, to bowl to Lawrence, and he comes in now and bowls, and that's beautifully driven by Westley, in fact, not Lawrence. Glove punch from his partner as they meet in the middle of the pitch, but they're not running any more because that's gone down to long off for 4. On the up, that, not a half volley, great shot, and Westley moves on to 112. Yes, Dennis Compton. So after he finished playing, he was still held in very high regard at Middlesex and at Lords, and held various committee positions and that kind of thing. And the club decided to put on a bit of a do for him on his 50th birthday, and they invited past players and dignitaries and various ex-teammates and so on to Lords, to the pavilion. I don't think it was in the actual long room. Morris bowls bouncer, which is ducked under by Westley, taken by Cox. So the pavilion was quite busy and full, and the champagne was flowing, and everybody was having a jolly good time. And the phone rang. Somebody came through and said, there's a phone call for Mr. Compton, could he come and take it? And Dennis Compton went out and took the phone call, and when he came back he was looking a little bit puzzled, a little bit miffed, and they said, are you alright, Dennis, what happened, what was the phone call? And he said, it was my mum, she said I'm only 49. Here's Morris in, bowl short to Westley, who cracks this away on the onside, really hits it well, pulled out to deep mid-wicket, but fielded there by Gareth Roderick, and they only get a single, which means Westley keeps the strike. He goes to 113, it's 340 for 2, and Lawrence is on 69. No wickets for Worcestershire today.
Yeah, there are lots of stories about Dennis Compton, but I hadn't heard that one, I must admit. Something that occurred to me just a little while ago, you were talking about the 12th men sort of parking themselves just beyond the boundary, quite some distance away from the changing rooms, dressing rooms. And I was thinking of all the grounds round the country, or the headquarters grounds. Sophia Gardens is probably the changing rooms there are probably further from the wicket than anywhere. I can't think of another ground where they have it's a long way up, and then you go up lots of stairs and steps, and then indoors. It's one heck of a journey. So I should imagine, the 12th man or men, there park themselves near the boundary. Otherwise, it would take them forever every time they have to come back and forth from the changing rooms.
Yeah, it's a long way out to the middle as well. In talking of Glamorgan grounds, from or it used to be. I haven't been there for a good while, but the St Helens ground at Swansea.
Oh yes,
lots of steps.
Yes, there are
lots of steps,
fairly precarious steps.
And we're going to see a new bowler. I think Jake Libby's going to have a little roll with his occasional off spin. Held himself back, the captain, until now, but he's going to have a little roll from the Diglis end before lunch.
In fact, from what I remember of the steps, dear Lord, things you remember about cricket grounds, but that's what makes the game fascinating.
Libby in bowls, and he's going to get a wicket with his first ball. He's got a wicket with his first ball. He should have come on sooner. He's picked up Tom Westley, who went for a big hit on the onside, possibly a bit rash against somebody's first ball.
Exactly.
But he got a leading edge and it flew high up in the air and was caught by Worcestershire wicketkeeper Ben Cox, moving forward about 6 or 7 yards from his position behind the stumps. So they've waited a long time for this, Worcestershire, but they've finally got a wicket, and it's Tom Westley caught by Cox off the bowling of Jake Libby for 113, made off 256 balls, and it's 340 for 3.
Yes, now it would be churlish of me to probably to pass comment, but the very first delivery, even when you've got 100 behind your name, the very first delivery from any bowler, surely you just sort of, it would be more prudent just to have a look at it and see, what he's doing. But anyway, all these games, life generally is always easier in retrospect than at the time, and he certainly got 113 more runs than I would make out there against Worcestershire. I was just thinking about this. It's funny how the mind works about cricket grounds. The steps are at Swansea, there are a lot of them, and they're not very what you'd call user-friendly. They're not sort of the right
width or
tread
depth,
or whatever.
Yes,
you keep tripping over your feet, or I do. Going up and down steps is very much a matter of rhythm, and if it's not in rhythm, it can almost literally throw you.
Paul Walter is the new batsman. Tall, very tall, left-handed figure, and he's gone out there now to join Dan Lawrence, and he'll be facing Brett D'Oliveira. Brett D'Oliveira has gone round the wicket to him now. Not Brett D'Oliveira, Jake Libby, I beg your pardon. How can I make that mistake? He's just picked up a wicket. And Walter's off the mark straight away, just tucking this one away on the onside. He made 30 odd against Worcestershire in the first game of the season. Made 70 odd against Durham, didn't he, in the second game? So he's been in some sort of form.
Yes, he's been fairly actually, for consistency, he's probably been more consistent than any of the others. He's
off the mark anyway, as Libby comes in and bowls again over the wicket, this time to the right-handed Lawrence, who steers this out on the offside. I've got another step story actually from my own playing experience on a county ground, which is one that I tell against myself, as Libby bowls, and this one's driven by Lawrence through extra cover, and they pick up 2 runs as Roderick goes round from deep cover point to do the fielding out on the boundary. Ed Barnard almost got a hand to that but couldn't hold on to it. So Lawrence moves on to 71, 343 for 3, and Libby, who's made the breakthrough, a bit of a golden arm with his first ball, bowls this next one to Lawrence, who pushes out on the offside. It's been a tidy over from Jake Libby. Bowls off spin, he pushes it through quite a bit. He's been occasionally used in white ball cricket in the short time that he's been here at Worcestershire. He's in now and he bowls, and this one again he's pushed out on the offside by Lawrence. He gets a single this time, and that takes the total to 344 for 3 at the end of that over. Yeah, Aigburth, Lancashire ground in Liverpool.
Yes.
Again, I haven't been there for a long time, but the pavilion is like an old house really, with a sort of green and white gable on it. And the one time that I did play there was when I was at university in Liverpool. It's a long time ago. We arrived at the ground and were told the way to the visitors' dressing room, and I had one of those things that we used to call a coffin, you know, those great big cricket cases, and I lugged it up these stairs. 1 flight, 2 flights, 3. It must have been the attic or something of this huge. Put it down, and I turned to whoever was next to me and I said, "Blimey!" I said, "That's a long way to go for a first baller." And guess what happened later in the day? Yeah, absolutely. Talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. But I don't know if they still have the changing rooms at the top like that now. But Aigburth, lovely ground though, really, really nice cricket ground.
So I believe Essex were due to play there last year, and I booked accommodation accordingly. Yeah. But it didn't happen, of course.
Unfortunately, doesn't have the happiest of memories for me as a batsman. I think it's probably your turn to take over the commentary, Dickie.
Right. Well, it's Morris bowling from the New Road end, moves in and bowls to Dan Lawrence, who just nudges that down to third man for a single, moving his score on to 72 and Essex's score to 344 for 3. And the sun still shining. It's pleasanter now than it's been for any part of this game. Admittedly, we're only sort of getting towards the end of the 4th session of this day. But
I'll give you some scores from elsewhere in the course of the next 2 or 3 overs. It was quite interesting if people are watching our stream or listening just to us and they want to know what's happening elsewhere. Some interesting developments. Durham 162 without loss, having bowled Warwickshire out for 87 yesterday.
Yes.
They've thrown games away before, Durham.
Oh yes.
As we know, but I doubt they'll throw this one away.
And that's lifted the bat high in the air by the left-handed and very tall Walter, one of the tallest players probably ever played for Essex, not the tallest. A few seasons ago Essex had a man called Will Jefferson.
Will Jefferson, great picture of him when he was playing for Leicestershire with James Taylor, isn't it, when they were batting together. 5'4" and 6'8" or something like that, I think. Yeah,
more than 6'8", 6'10" and a half. He always said.
Goodness me,
6'10". Dreadful to interview him because, you know, I'm not a particularly tall man myself, about 5'9", and he was a foot taller than me, and sort of looking up.
I must just say,
outside the off stump goes through to the keeper.
Accused Durham of throwing the game away. I don't mean that. I don't mean throwing it away. I mean losing it from a good position, don't I? Nobody throws a game away. It just feels that way sometimes, I think. Anyway, 162 without loss, chasing Warwick. Well, replying to Warwick's 87. Fantastic position to be in. Surrey in an equally strong position against Hampshire. Hampshire 92 all out. Surrey 223 for 2 at the Oval. And Middlesex are 338 for 7 at Taunton against Somerset.
As Morris moves in and bowls to Walter, and Walter sort of toys with that one and waves a bat at it, but it goes through to the wicketkeeper.
At Hove, Sussex made 328. Lancashire are 38 without loss in reply. And at Sapphire Gardens, where they're having an early lunch, presumably because of a bit of rain, Glamorgan are 129 for 5 in reply to Kent's 138. At Headingley, Yorkshire made 206. Northampton in a bit of trouble, 96 for 5.
As Morris moves in again and bowls to Walter, Walter plays that out into the covers, but a good diving stop there.
And at Bristol, Leicestershire going well, 358 for 5 against Gloucestershire. And at Derby, Nottinghamshire forcing home their advantage over their big local rivals. That's a game with quite a bit riding on it in terms of local bragging rights. Notts are 40 for 1 in their second innings, having made 256 in the first innings, and bowled Derbyshire out for 105. So Notts are 191 ahead in that one.
And Walter plays that pleasantly into the onside. They go through just for a single, although there's a misfield which accommodates the taking of the second run, and never run on a misfield. Well, Walter was home, but
it was close.
It was close, yes.
A
good throw came into the keeper's end, and Cox broke the stumps or the wicket, obviously just before the very, very long-legged Walter got there. But yeah, probably unnecessarily close call. Essex don't want to throw away a very good position that they're in. Not that well, we don't know how close that was. So at the end of the over, 347 for 3 with Walter on 3, Lawrence on 73, and we've had 122 overs of the Essex innings, and we've got about 13 minutes to lunch. On an ever improving day weather-wise.
Best it's been in the whole game, hasn't it?
Yes, certainly is. Well, it looks very pleasant. It's probably still distinctly chilly out there, but it looks pleasant enough as D'Oliveira moves in. Libby, sorry, of course it is. Libby moves in and bowls, and it's just played defensively by Lawrence, in addition to the score. Libby again, right arm over the wicket, bowls, and solidly defensively Lawrence stretches forward, gets the pitch of the ball, and it trickles out on the onside. Libby again in, and that's more or less a carbon copy. It's just pushed out on the onside. No further addition to the score of 347 for 3. So just trying to work out what Essex might have by tea if things go well. Of course, if things go badly, they could all be out for 380, but
unlikely, I think.
I think it is unlikely. I mean, over the years, and I've been watching Essex for decades, really. Not so much when I played club cricket, but before it and after it. Yes, I've seen them throw away some very good positions. It's just played defensively as well, as other sides have as well. I'm sure it's one of the numerous fascinations of this game is that suddenly the course of a game can change within an over or so. End of the over, and Essex are 347 for 3. Anybody just logging on for the first time today? The one man to go was Tom Westley, who was caught off a skyer by wicketkeeper Ben Cox off Libby's first delivery of his spell when Westley was 113. So one captain dismissing the other. 113 when the score was 340. So then Paul Walter went in at the rather useful position of 340 for 3. It's a nice time for a number 5 to go in. That's just played defensively. Trickles out on the onside. He is excessively tall, Paul Walter. I haven't got the book of words with me. It's left in the little commentary box next door, but he must be a good 6'9", I'd have thought. He's not just a tall man, he's a very tall man. And try to avoid cliches like the plague, as they say, but but the bat does look, I'm not going to say like a matchstick, I refuse to, but it looks like something very small in his hands. It's a big item, I think is the phrase. Probably be very useful. Big unit, that was it. Yes, thank you. Be very useful in the line out if he played rugby. It's funny, when I played rugby, we had a fella who was almost that height in the forwards. I was never a forward, I was a fly half. And that short of a length chopped away hard into the ground and then bounced it over the fielder's head for 4. And Well, he must have hit that really hard so for it to bounce over here, and the fielder now just indicates, you know, that he was stretching like a goalkeeper trying to keep it out from under the bar, and yeah, so it demonstrates how hard Walter must have hit that into the ground for it then to bounce over the fielder and go for 4. So Walter goes on to 7. Yes, my rugby story. Yeah, we had a forward who was almost as tall as Walter. He must have been good 6, 8.5, something like that. And all the others were sort of what you might call normal size. And that's pulled away for a single down to long leg. And at a line out, it was obvious who we were going to throw the ball to. And yet they still went through all these complicated line out calls, you know. 32 4x to the square root of red, and the opposition knew all the time, well, they're only going to throw to their tall bloke, aren't they? So it was yeah, very amusing.
Yeah, line out calls, all sorts of stories associated with those, aren't there?
I would say, although you're more of a football man, you know a bit of rugby.
Yeah, I did. Well,
at school,
I was a PE teacher as well, so I played and coached a bit. Yeah.
That's just wraps Westley. Sorry, not Westley.
The line out calls are always good. At the RGS Worcester up the road here in King's School, where the fields are around the ground here, great rivalry of course between the two. And when they play rugby against each other, it's a huge game, which they now play annually at Six Ways up at Worcester Rugby Club.
Oh right.
But I remember that when I taught at RGS, I knew that all the line out calls were always the same for all the teams in those days.
Yes. As the next livery played out to mid-off by
and they had if it was a house, the name of a house, they threw it to 2. If it was the name of a former headmaster, they threw it to 4, and if it was the name of a current member of staff, they threw it to the back. And it all worked very well until somebody moved schools.
Oh, wonderful. Oh yes, I like that.
Moved from one school to the other, and they all had to be changed.
Morris moves in and bowls to Lawrence, and Lawrence plays that out into the mid-wicket area, and they go through for a comfortable single as Libby picks it up at the end of the over, and he'll probably retain the ball because he'll probably use it to purvey his off-spin for the next over.
I also like that story about, I think it was in a Welsh club, I was told it was, it's probably apocryphal anyway, where they had the scrum half used to say to the number 8, you know, give him a call if they were going blind, or the number 8 would, whichever way around it worked. And if I say a word that begins with P, we're going blind, and if I say a word that begins with S, we're going open. And halfway through the game, he shouts out psychology.
Oh yes, wonderful.
And the number 8 was very puzzled, apparently.
That's oh dear me, that reminded me of another Welsh rugby story, which if listeners would allow me a little moment.
Lovely shot that.
Was dabbed down to third man, and yeah, Welsh international side were losing quite comfortably at half time, and the captain's talk was he allegedly wasn't one of the sharpest pencils in the box. He was a good rugby player, but you know, he wouldn't have won Brain of Britain. And he said, you know, this game's not over yet. We're going to rise like a phantom, like a pheasant from the ashes. And somebody said, excuse me, Skip, the word's not. I'll come back to that in a moment. And that's just played defensively. He said, excuse me, Skip, the phrase is not rise like a pheasant from the ashes, it's rise like a phoenix from the ashes. He said, yes, well, never mind. He said, I knew it was some blooming bird beginning with an F. That's just played out on the offside. No addition to the score. Needless to say, they still went on and lost to England. 356 for 3. As Libby moves in round the wicket to the left-handed Walter, just plays it out on the onside, no addition to the score. So we've got another 5 minutes before lunch, so we'll have another way. Walter comes down the wicket and hits it hard, high and handsomely over mid-wicket for 4 runs. And the fielder disappears towards the sadly empty Basil d'Oliveira stand. He then has to climb over the advertising hoardings, which themselves are looking a bit sad, really, because there's nobody to advertise things to very much. And well, I suppose now that with the live stream, of course, that's not true, is it? No. But there's one advertising hoarding there looking as if it's in need of a little bit of tender loving care. It's difficult to make out what it says, and even if it does, we wouldn't read it out on BBC. That's worked our way back to the square for four. Well, no, it won't be four, because the fielder comes round from deep mid-wicket and throws it. A good, accurate throw in from number 9, Gareth Roderick. So a somewhat expensive over from Libby there, during which Essex moved on to 362 for 3, Lawrence 75, Walter 14.
And last over before lunch, I think, coming up.
Yep, probably. So thanks very much for all the emails you've sent in this morning. We'll obviously have some lunch ourselves, and then but do continue this afternoon. BBC Essex Cricket at gmail.com, or Twitter Frank at Frank Watson 58.
Yeah.
As that's worked away. Oh, good looking shot there from Lawrence. Just, well, almost dismissive. A touch of arrogance about that shot, really. It just sort of drove down the line and it dispatched it just to the offside of straight for 4 runs. Lawrence looking in good form. And he moves on to 79. And well, Essex couldn't have wished for a much better morning, really. They resumed at what, 266 for 2. So they've added exactly 100. And that's played it down with this flurry of the bat, almost a sort of West Indian style about it from Lawrence. He's a very, very, very wristy player. Very wristy. Not risky with a K, but wristy with a W at the front. And yeah, very effective as well. Scored a big 100 at the Oval in his debut when he was only 17, I think. I remember watching it a few years ago. And Morris moves in to bowl the third ball of this over. Bowls now, and Walter plays it hard into the ground. Doesn't time it completely properly. Probably looking to hit it square away towards the umpire for 4 there. The umpire square on the offside rather than chopping and changing to accommodate the left-handed Paul Walter. And the sun continues to shine here, and well, all grounds look better in the sunshine, but it really is a glorious picture. It's outside the leg stump, and a bit of a waft from Walter, but it goes through to the keeper. Yeah, with the I'm sorry to pile on. You might consider I'm piling on the agony for those who would love to be here and can't be, but you know, the sight of the cathedral and the willow trees and other trees and their various shades of spring green. Not spring greens, that's a different thing altogether. That's what you grow on the allotment, spring green. That really does make a wonderful, wonderful picture. English cricket in all its glory. This is the sort of stuff, this is the archetypal English cricket, and you cannot beat it. And with men playing in white shirts, players playing in white shirts, and yeah, it's the stuff I was weaned on, and the stuff that many of us still prefer. But there are others who prefer the other versions, and to which they're perfectly entitled, and good luck to them. And if they didn't, then it wouldn't survive. And we all know, of course, that it's only the one-day game that allows us the luxury of watching county championship cricket anyway. Because one thing's for sure, if anything is in life apart from death and taxes, one thing's for sure, if it weren't for one-day cricket, then the Championship cricket would probably have died out some years ago. That's worked way down to long leg for 4, and it's the end of the over, and the players all head for the pavilion. Almost as much to say, I don't know what you think, umpires, but we're off. And even if you don't think it is it is 1 o'clock. I shall go to do my update for BBC Essex listeners and convey the good news to them.
Thank you, Dickie Davis. And I'll just recap on that morning session before updating BBC Hereford and Worcester's listeners on FM. So the session this morning has seen Essex add 102 runs to their overnight 266 for 2, so 102 runs added this morning. They're 368 for 3, just the one wicket going down this morning, and that was the wicket of Tom Westley, the Essex captain, who was caught by Ben Cox after bowling of Jake Libby for 113. His 113 coming off 256 balls with 14 fours and a 6. So that's the only wickets that's gone down in the morning session, and Essex, having won the toss and chosen to bat yesterday, in fine shape. 368 for 3, with Paul Walter on 15 and Dan Lawrence on 80. Do join us after the lunch interval for live commentary on the remainder of the day's play, and that will begin at around about 1:40.